Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Mitchell Group Media. Today, we'll be discussing escrow and closing costs. Now, what is escrow? In the simplest terms, escrow is an independent third party holding money and documents from the seller, homebuyer, and lender in a trust during the course of a transaction, which will be dispersed and distributed based on mutual instructions from the buyers and/or the sellers provided to escrow. Now, after that being explained, you might know even less what escrow is now before I explained it. It should get a little easier as we move forward. Depending on where you live, escrow may be more commonly referred to by a different name. I have a broker's license in the state of Florida, and my information will reflect my local customs. Always consult with an industry professional in your market. Now, before we dive in, please like and subscribe so you can circle back to this video if you need to. Escrow officers, also known as closing or settlement agents, have one of the most crucial roles in the home buying process. They gather all funds and closing instructions to execute the wishes of all the transaction parties and ensure that the funds are properly distributed to all service providers in addition to the seller. Most commonly, the escrow officer is part of a title insurance agency, handling the real estate title work for the transaction. When entering escrow or closing or settlement, depending on where you live, the buyer and the seller establish conditions for the transfer of ownership. These terms and conditions, also referred to as closing instructions, have been given to the escrow officer, and they have the responsibility of seeing that the parties' written instructions are followed prior to closing. When all the requirements of the contract have been fulfilled, closing will occur. At this time, the escrow officer, or closing or settlement agent, collects all documents, outstanding funds and fees like title insurance premium, real estate commissions, inspection charges. Title to the property is then transferred under the terms of the contract, recorded with the appropriate official, and title insurance policies are issued. Be sure to check out my other video for details in understanding title and title insurance. What exactly is the purpose of escrow? The common use of escrow is a neutral third party for the multiple parties involved in a real estate transaction. The escrow officer acts as a custodian for funds and documents, a clearinghouse for payments of all demands, an agency to perform the clerical details for the settlement of the accounts between the parties. No matter what name they go by, these officers or agents all follow the same rules of what they can and cannot do. So who holds escrow? The best approach, in my opinion, is to hire an expert escrow attorney in your market to serve as a neutral party in the transaction. Commonly, the buyer's attorney acts as the escrow agent in a real estate transaction. No associate is authorized to hold the funds in a transaction. Only licensed real estate brokers can have an escrow fund or account. An escrow account is used solely for holding money that does not belong to the broker, unless it refers to an amount to cover only miscellaneous expenses. The broker must deposit the escrow funds into an escrow account immediately, which means depositing it in an escrow account no later than the end of the third business day following the receipt. There are a number of documents that you may need to sign in order to finalize the sale of your house. Escrow instructions and application, settlement statement and closing disclosure, grant warranty deed, a 593, 1099-S, FERPTA affidavit. Escrow instructions are a consolidation of instructions from all parties involved in the sale that are needed to finalize the transaction. For those of you in California, typically your California CAR residential purchase agreement is also the joint escrow instructions from the parties to the escrow. Sometimes additional escrow instructions are needed to finalize the transaction. They are prepared by your escrow officer and signed off by you and the buyer. The estimated settlement statement will reflect all the costs of the transaction and will show what your proceeds of the sale will be. In addition, you will also be asked to sign the closing disclosure. This document is regulated by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. A grant warranty deed is the document that transfers title of the property from you, the seller, to the new owner, the buyer. This document needs to be signed at closing before a notary public, which is either your escrow officer or an approved notary. You are required to supply a current and valid picture ID to the notary public before you can sign the deed. Your escrow officer or real estate agent will contact you for an appointment to sign your closing documents and deed. Escrow is required by state and federal regulations to obtain additional information and forms from you. These forms may require you to seek counsel with your tax advisor or an attorney. Escrow officers are prohibited from providing you with legal advice regarding these forms, such as 593 or 1099-S for submitting the seller's gross proceeds information required by law, or FERPTA for tax withholdings for foreign sellers. Now you can see selling a home is not as simple as negotiating a price with a buyer. There are many other costs, including those associated with the loan, appraisal, insurance, and some are one-time fees, while others reoccur over the life of the loan, and it's important to understand why. There are also many parties helping to close the transaction, which will require payment. Depending on where you live and the terms of the transaction, what you pay for will vary. To close the sale, escrow will facilitate the payoff of any existing loans encumbering the property. To ensure this is done accurately, you will need to furnish information about all existing loans to your escrow officer. For each loan, you will need to provide the lender's name, loan number, and contact information. Your escrow officer will need this information to order the loan payoff demand so the loans may be paid off correctly at the close of escrow. In Florida, within 3 business days after receiving a mortgage loan application, the lender must provide the purchaser with a loan estimate that provides important information including the interest rate, monthly payment, and closing costs. At least 3 business days prior to closing, the lender is required to provide a closing disclosure that indicates the settlement charges the purchaser will be required to pay, along with the loan details. The purpose of the 3-day time frame is to allow the purchaser time to compare the final terms with the original estimated terms. Title companies and attorneys handle closings. Conveyance is by warranty deed. Mortgages are the customary security instruments. Foreclosures are judicial, and they take about 3 months. They involve service by the sheriff, a judgment, a foreclosure and sale, advertising public sale, and finally issuance of a certificate of sale and certificate of title. Buyers pay the escrow and closing costs, while county custom determines who pays for the title insurance. Sellers pay the doc stamps, or the documentary tax. Property taxes are payable annually, but the due and the delinquent dates are months apart, November 1st and April 1st. Be sure and check out my other video on property taxes for more details. Like many aspects of selling a house, the exact process you will follow depends on where you live. Fortunately, the major steps and milestones in your closing are similar no matter where that is. You will put your house on the market and accept an offer. A title search is conducted to determine the status of title. Afterwards, a preliminary title insurance report or commitment is given to you. Be sure and read it carefully if requested payoff demands for mortgages and other liens recorded against your property are ordered. Earnest money is then deposited if required by your purchaser with the closing agent. Your buyer's loan documents are submitted to escrow by their lender. Escrow or closing agents arrange the signing of documents, the disbursement of funds per terms of the contract, and records the deed with the appropriate governmental agencies. And congratulations, your home is sold. Although rare, some homes are purchased right as property taxes are issued. To handle this, your escrow officer will figure out exactly how much the buyer and seller owe as it relates to their share of ownership of the property taxes. To ensure you have the most up-to-date information, always contact your local real estate professional, title agent, real estate attorney, or consult with your local government. If you have found any of the information in this video helpful or informative, please like and subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.